The topic of race is a sensitive one because it touches on many factors that vary from one point of view to another. It can be quite subjective. Even those who genuinely mean well may fall into the pit trap of racial insensitivity, or worse, racial offense. Most racism and topics relating to racial discrimination occur in the chaotic world of politics. However, racial stereotypes, a discriminatory means to get away with prejudice, can sometimes surface in places where we least expect them to. Case in point, during the golden age of cartoons, and especially during the Second World War, animation studios, like their Hollywood counterparts, were churning out films aimed at either boosting the morale of the troops in the country or creating propaganda to break the illusions of the Axis powers. Many of the cartoons and the characters produced have become icons and institutions on their own as time went on. And today we recognize many of their names and faces and laugh at their antics, but once upon a time, these characters have been in a position where, if it were to happen today, their views and on-screen depictions of other races are really pushing the limits of tolerance and racial understanding. So in this video, we're gonna count down 10 cartoon characters that you may not have known were really racist. And since the height of racial intolerance was at fever pitch during the 1940s and 50s, we're gonna widen our scope to include classic cartoons that may no longer be on air today, as well as some episodes from notable shows that have been labeled as offensive and discriminatory. We'll start off with number 10, All This and Rabbit Stew. We all love a good Bugs Bunny cartoon. The crazy adventures of this rascally rabbit has been on TV for decades, and he has entertained generations of avid fans. However, this eccentric hare has a share of racially offensive episodes, and among them was All This and Rabbit Stew. In the episode, a black boy modeled after a stereotype called a coon, made popular by a man named Stepin Fetchit, tries to capture Bugs. True to the fashion of Looney Tunes storytelling, Bugs outwits the boy through tricks. One of them was distracting the boy with a game of craps. After winning the game, Bugs cleans out the boy and imitates his mannerisms, speech patterns, and clothes to the point of mockery for a maligned minority of people back in the 1940s. Number 9, Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips. This is another one from our favorites, Rabbit. This episode was released at the height of World War II and shows Bugs Bunny trapped on a deserted island. While finding a way out, he encounters a stranded Japanese man, and it was not long before his antics ensues. It may not at all be seen as culturally offensive to the Japanese or any Asian race because the episode was obviously a propaganda piece at a time when the Allies were fighting the good fight against Nazi Germany and Japan. However, the comical depiction of the Japanese man in the episode alludes to a racial stereotype: slant-eyed, buck-toothed, large round glasses, and a comical Asian accent, which can all earn the show's producers today a ton of angry letters, to say the least. Number 8, Go-Go Gomez and Joe Jetsu from The Dick Tracy Show. It seems like almost every show that came out in the 40s to the 60s was riddled with offensive racial stereotypes, and The Dick Tracy Show was among them. While the Dick Tracy comic series stands as one of America's pop culture institutions, the fun it pokes on races like Asians and Latin Americans cannot be overlooked. The character of Go-Go Gomez in the 1960s Dick Tracy Show was a sombrero-wearing policeman who frequently slept in a hammock. The character's attributes pretty much underscores the stereotype that some Americans have towards the Latino people. Joe Jetsu, on the other hand, is a well-mannered ally of Dick Tracy who is a master of martial arts, kicking and judo, flipping criminals and knocking them out while saying "so sorry" and "excuse please," audibly interchanging his R's and L's. Number 7, the Indian Chief and the Indians from Disney's Peter Pan. Peter Pan is a beloved literary classic and also a beloved Disney animated film, following the adventures of 3 siblings as they are whisked away to magical Never Never Land. Wendy, John, and Michael fly side by side with Peter Pan as they battle pirates and meet the Indians. Now, the problem with this 1953 classic, though, is how the Indians, were more correctly Native Americans, are depicted on screen, and how the darling siblings seem to be racially oblivious to their appearance and culture. Big-nosed and severely red-skinned with a disjointed way of speaking English, this animated stereotype seemed to pass under the radar of many civil rights groups, while the Native American culture is reduced to being a cartoonish depiction of a once noble race whose rich history has been silently swept under the rug. Number 6, the Siamese Twin Gang from Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Since the animated series began in 1989, racial discrimination against African Americans has become frowned upon by civil society. Unfortunately, though, overt racism against Asians seems to still be free game, as shown by the Siamese Twin Gang. In the series, the gang are obviously cats of Asian persuasions. While ethnicity is not much of a problem, it is the portrayal of these characters that seem to have gone unnoticed. Quite frankly, in spite of being villains in the show, their Asian ethnicity echoes back to a time when America was publishing propaganda against the Japanese in World War to throwing every single bit of offensive imagery that can be hurled. Imagine seeing this in a children's TV show. Asian characters owning a laundromat and running an illegal gambling operation directly underneath it. To add more wood to the fire, these characters speak a mingled form of English that is akin to the Asian stereotype. Number 5, the crows from Dumbo. It seems that Disney may be on a streak when it comes to racial stereotyping. In the heartwarming 1941 classic Dumbo, a group of jive-talking crows come to the aid of the little elephant and teach him how to fly. These black birds are characterized by their lack of education, evidenced by the way they speak, and overtly poor status in the social pyramid. What's even more uncomfortable is the fact that the lead crow, named Jim Crow, was voiced by a Caucasian actor doing his best to emulate a stereotypically offensive African-American accent. While it was considered progressive during its time, the portrayals of these crows are still etched in our minds as offensive and racially insensitive, despite the well-meaning behind their intentions to help baby Dumbo. Number 4, the merchant from Aladdin. By the time Disney's Aladdin rolled into theaters, society has become a lot more accepting and well-informed about racial sensitivity and tolerance. While Aladdin is more or less acceptable to the public palate in terms of treating its characters, a scene from its opening titles did not fare well with many audience members. If you remember, at the beginning of the film, a merchant is traveling the desert to the fictional city of Agrabah. On his way, he begins his narration with a song about a land from a faraway place. In the song, if you are quick enough, a line goes, "Where they cut off your ears if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home." After receiving an amount of backlash, Disney promptly rewrote the line for the DVD release into a much less offensive, "Where it's flat and immense and the heart is intense." It may not be quite the positive picture to paint about the Middle East, but it's a tiny step forward that we can take with a grain of salt. Number 3, Mammy Two Shoes from Tom and Jerry. Mammy Two Shoes is a caricature of an African-American nanny and housekeeper who appears semi-regularly on the Tom and Jerry series of cartoons. I guess the question is, what is not offensive about this character? It seems like Mammy Two Shoes is brimming with racial stereotypes despite the fact that we never see her face. In fact, the character has become one of the hallmarks of racial stereotypes in popular culture that the character gained a spot in the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia. In 2013, when the museum was asked about the character of Mammy Two Shoes, representatives responded with this statement that puts racial discrimination in cartoons into a clear perspective. It says, Mammy Two Shoes was a character in the Tom and Jerry cartoon series created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. These short cartoons were created in the 1940s and the 1950s. During the Jim Crow era, it was common for animated cartoons to feature racial caricatures, and the Tom and Jerry shorts were no exception. In the episode The Lonesome Mouse, a terrified Mammy Two Shoes climbed a stool to escape Jerry. The mouse shook the stool and, shaking, dislodged a diamond ring, false teeth, a pair of dice, and a straight razor. Number 2, Popeye the Sailor Man. To make it brief, many of the Popeye cartoons that we see today have been heavily edited for its extremely racist content. The beloved sailor won the hearts of audiences in the 1940s with his adventures, especially during the period of the Second World War when America needed that boost of morale at the expense, however, of other minorities' rights. We see this clearly in one episode called Popeye's Pappy, which aired in 1951, where Popeye travels to a distant island only to find his Pappy being worshipped by a tribe of dark-skinned, big-lipped people with bones sticking out of their nostrils and hair carrying spears. Popeye and his Pappy later on found themselves fighting with the tribesmen, and by the end of the episode, the duo stacks them on a rack and hangs a sign that reads "cheaper by the dozen." If that isn't any kind of message pertaining to slavery, then I think the whole concept of the show and characters are completely lost on everyone. Finally, the Censored 11. The Censored 11 is a list of 11 cartoons from Warner Brothers' golden age in the 30s and 40s that have been pulled out due to their offensive content, ranging from racial stereotypes to offensive and insensitive take on social issues concerning race. Among the list are several Bugs Bunny cartoons and obscure titles such as Goldilocks and the Jiving Bears, Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs, and Uncle Tom's Bungalow. Today, we are quite lucky that there are safeguards in place to combat offensive content. However, the idea that cartoons have been at one point part of the problem of racial prejudice should not be discounted and should be looked upon as a reminder of much troubled times. As an article on IndieWire succinctly puts it, there is no point hiding your head in the sand pretending that things did not exist as they did. People should face up to the reality of the attitudes and beliefs of the period and should examine and discuss them. Alright guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you later.